Speaker, we are here today as part of the New Dem Coalition, the New Democratic Coalition Immigration Task Force, which I'm proud to co-chair along with my colleagues, Representative Garcia and Representative Castro. I'm here to discuss immigration reform and what the path forward is for an issue that over 70% of the American people agree, an issue that right now threatens the security of this country, that continues to cost taxpayers money. But with the passage of a simple bill that already more than two-thirds of the Senate has supported, would reduce our deficit by hundreds of billions of dollars, finally secure our border, restore the rule of law within our country, and ensure that never again do we have millions of people in this country illegally. More than a year ago, New Democratic Coalition helped pave the way for immigration reform with release of detailed principles on comprehensive immigration reform. Our principles express support for common sense reforms that reduce bureaucratic backlogs, reunited families, created jobs for Americans, and spurs competitiveness. In August, we issued a letter to Speaker John Boehner demanding that he introduce a comprehensive immigration reform bill, and if he failed to do so, we would introduce our own. Well, no bill was forthcoming, and so New Democratic Coalition members worked with a diverse group of colleagues on both sides of the aisle to introduce the House's only bipartisan comprehensive immigration reform bill, 15, last October. Since then, we met with countless stakeholders, from business owners to law enforcement to agriculture to the faith-based community, all who support moving the ball forward and support our bill, H.R. 15. Businesses, tech companies, faith leaders, and our voters are demanding action on fixing our broken immigration system. Yet despite a level of consensus rarely seen in our country on an issue, and rarely seen in Washington on an issue, the loudest, most extreme voices on the other side of the aisle have thus far been successful in preventing this body from acting and solving a problem that the American people want solved. One of my Republican colleagues even equated dreamers, young de facto Americans who grew up in this country and know no other country and want nothing more than to pay taxes and contribute to make America better. One of my Republican colleagues compared dreamers with drug mules, with disparaging remarks about the size of their calves, and he continues to refuse to apologize for his hateful comments. These kinds of deplorable, intolerant remarks are dividing our country, but they should not divide this chamber. They should not prevent a common-sense bill from coming forward. House Republicans need to reject the offensive and unproductive rhetoric of some of their members and finally show real leadership on immigration reform that majorities of Republican voters support. The only floor vote that we've even had this entire latest legislative session on immigration was a vote to defund the Deferred Action Program, to defund the DACA program, to deport dreamers, to not allow dreamers to get right with the law and get a provisional renewable working permit. Sadly, that amendment passed the House. We were able to stop it. It didn't happen. The DACA program continues. We encourage President Obama to extend the DACA program. But just to show the American people where Congress is and what the Republicans have done, the only immigration bill that they've even voted on was to deport dreamers. The House majority can't continue to sit by and allow extremists to define their party. Now, the release of immigration principles by the Republicans on reform was a very positive first step. And we encourage the Republicans to work with Democrats to construct a bill based on these principles, many of which we believe are consistent with those of the New Democratic Coalition and consistent with H.R. 15. We're happy to look at new ideas built on the principles that we can establish together and a commitment to fix our broken immigration system. But again, Our patience can't last forever. If there is continued Republican failure to bring a bill forward, we will have no option but to take out a discharge petition on the only bipartisan bill that exists. If the Speaker won't lead, I hope that the membership of this body will lead and take the agenda in our own hands and allow a vote that will pass a bill that will then pass the Senate and be signed by the President. We're joined by a co-chair on the New Dem Immigration Task Force, a leader in the fight to reform our immigration system, the representative from Texas, Mr. Castro. I yield to the gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Congressman Polis, and thank you for your leadership on the issue of comprehensive immigration reform. I'm proud to join you and Congressman Garcia from Florida as co-chairs of the New Dem Coalition advocating for comprehensive immigration reform. And as you mentioned, there are very compelling moral and economic reasons for the United States Congress to pass comprehensive immigration reform in the year 2014. We know, for example, that there are a handful of American industries, 4 or 5 or 6 major American industries, that literally would not exist the way they do and would not be nearly as productive as they are but for immigrant labor, both legal and undocumented immigrant labor. For example, we know that about 40% of the tech businesses that have been started in Silicon Valley have been started by foreign-born persons, by immigrants. We know, for example, that with respect to the agricultural industry, they self-report that 50% of their workers are undocumented, which probably means that 75% of their workers are undocumented. So on everything from the high-tech industry to the agriculture industry, construction, and other trades, we can appreciate, especially myself coming from the great state of Texas, that does more trade than any other state in the nation, has the longest border with Mexico of any state in the nation. We can appreciate the role that immigrants have played in our society and continue to play in our economy. And I want to share with you, Congressman, just a quick story of an immigrant that I met recently back home in San Antonio, because I know that over the course of this debate, there has been a lot of divisiveness, some disparaging remarks that have been made about immigrants. The overwhelming majority of these folks are not people who come to America to do harm or to commit crimes. These are people who are fundamentally seeking a better life in the way that throughout the generations people have come here to this country. And so a few months back, right around the time of the government shutdown, I went back home to San Antonio when I was home for about 36 hours, and my hair had gotten too long, and so I decided to get a haircut. And it was a Sunday, and the place that I usually go to was closed. So I drove around, and I came to this strip mall, and I was looking for a place that might be open. And I came across this place called J Cuts. And I went inside, and I sat down, and there was a woman who welcomed me into the chair. And she started telling me her story as she was cutting my hair. And she told me the story of how she arrived in the United States. And she said that she had come from Latin America, I guess about 25 years ago, that she had come in a raft of inner tubes across the Rio Grande. And she had ended up marrying, and I imagine marrying an American citizen, becoming a U.S. citizen. And this woman said that she'd worked for a few years cleaning houses and cleaning businesses. She'd been often cheated out of money by her employers. She mentioned that one job that had promised her, $100, or $1,000 turned into $100. And after that, she worked at Fantastic Sam's and Supercuts, a few haircutting chains, and that's how she learned how to speak English. But the long and short of it is, eventually, this woman, Ms. Gonzalez, came to own her own hair salon, became an entrepreneur, and was now employing other people. And she said that her brothers, who had also immigrated, also were business owners now. And so those are very promising and not atypical stories of immigrants who come here and are very productive members of our society and who have a lot to contribute. And it's been my hope throughout this debate that in the rhetoric that comes out of the United States Congress, that we will realize and acknowledge that immigrants play such an important